Hi, my name is Jackie. I'm a licensed esthetician in the state of Pennsylvania, and today I'm going to tell you about my experience in aesthetic school. So before we get into it, if you want to like this video and subscribe, that would help me so much. I'm a little baby YouTuber, so I started aesthetic school in the summer of 2020, and as you know, that was like shortly after COVID hit. So it was a little chaotic. I had already decided I was going to school that spring. I was pretty worried about how things would pan out. Being such a face-to-face close contact career, if it was worth pursuing during the pandemic, how things were going to look. So I went to a small school in Pennsylvania. They offered cosmetology, nails, braiding, and aesthetics. A lot of the other schools close by only offered cosmetology unless I wanted to travel a few hours for schools. That's kind of why I chose this school. They were in the process of getting accredited, so I couldn't as easily get loans and things like that for schooling because they weren't accredited yet. So I paid out of pocket. I paid the minimum monthly payment, which was $300, and that took me a year to pay off. So my schooling took around 6 months because I went part-time. If I had gone full-time, it would have been only 3 months. Pennsylvania requires 300 hours of schooling. Our schooling was around 480 hours total. Because I was still paying for my schooling another 6 months after I had graduated, I couldn't apply to take my test to get my license until I was paid up. So there was a period of 6 months where I was just working after I had graduated, to pay off my schooling and finally take my test. So ideally, you want to take your test right when you graduate. That way everything's fresh in your mind. But I did use some study guides from QuizUp that we had also used during schooling that helped me refresh things before I took my state board test. So the part-time classes were in the evening from 5 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. I worked from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. and then I booked it to class from 5 to 9 every weeknight. And it was pretty rough, but there was no other way I could pay for it and go to class at the same time. Our school had a dress code of wearing black and white. That was kind of tricky, having to change and go to class. Being in the evening classes, we didn't see a lot of clients. That is one con. So I'll go over the pros and cons of the part-time evening classes. Some of the pros to doing part-time evening classes was that I had a much smaller class. It was me and 2 other women and our teacher. There were nights where we also had a few cosmetology students making up hours, so our teacher sometimes had to juggle both classes, which was a little difficult, but a lot of the time we were just studying, so we would go through each chapter. We started with more sanitation procedures, and then we got into like facials, microderm, waxing, that kind of thing. But we did the theory for a few days, did all the quizzes, and then we did the practical. A lot of our practice was done on mannequins, and that is a con. It was partially because we were in the evening classes, so technically the school wasn't open for appointments, so we couldn't get as much real people there. Our teacher did bring in some friends and family for us to work on, and obviously we worked on each other. But with it being COVID, the rules were constantly changing. We couldn't use steam. We had to wear masks, and there were weeks where we could work on people for like waxing and other like services not on the face, and then things would change and we could do a facial. So it was a little hard working around the COVID regulations, but it was such a small group of people that no one got COVID. Everything was very safe. But being a smaller class, I would say it was easier for me to speak up and ask questions and communicate with the teacher and my classmates. I feel if it were a larger class, it would have been more difficult for me, at least, to speak up and get get as many questions answered as I liked. I ask a lot of questions, but that's a good thing. You should ask a lot of questions in school if you're able to. I feel that having a smaller class built closer relationships with my fellow students and my teacher. I had met some of the full-time students who would come in the evenings to make up hours, and it seemed like there was a lot of drama and some bullying that went on in the full-time classes. I don't know if that was because some of the girls in the full-time classes who just did it during the daytime took things less seriously. And I will say, I heard that some of the daytime teachers were a little more careless, and I don't think that had anything to do with the time of day they were teaching or the fact that they were full-time, because they had other jobs as well. For the most part, the teachers did, and some of the full-time day students did as well. But I just got lucky with a teacher who, she really did her best to make sure we were getting the most out of the curriculum and having our needs met and getting our questions answered. Because it's a small, relatively new school, the school was maybe only 5 years old. Some of the administrative staff was just a little too casual about things. I know a lot of cosmetology and hair really eats up a big chunk of the beauty industry, at least around here, and in schools that seems to be their bread and butter. And so aesthetics, we kind of felt like an afterthought sometimes, especially being the evening class. So that was a con. We didn't get to participate in as many like holiday events, parties, things like that. Not like we really felt the need to. I mean, we were there to learn in the evening. So that's another reason. The daytime classes just felt like they tried to make it more fun and more casual, but a lot of the staff was just a little too casual. So, but being in a smaller school like that, ultimately, you're there to learn what you need to learn and get your hours enough to take your state board test and get your license. And after that, there's so much more to learn. And it really doesn't matter what school you went to when it comes to getting a job. You might not have the same education as someone who went to a larger school, but a lot of the learning comes after getting your license, and that takes your own determination. So there were some girls who were just there to get their hours and their license because they had already been owning and operating businesses offering like lash extensions, brow waxing, mostly lash extensions, because that's so huge, and it's something you can learn on your own, take an online class and do it from home. There was a girl who had at least one or two other girls working under her doing lash extensions. I don't know if she was renting a suite or what, but she had an accountant, she had a whole business and no license. And she got reported. So that's why she ended up in school. She was a little resentful of it. So she was just there faffing off. She was also part of a pyramid scheme that she was selling. So it was just, she was also bullying this other girl who had some difficulty in school. So there was just some of that, messy drama in the daytime. So when they were there making up hours, it was just like, oh. Speaking of teachers being careless, there was a teacher in the daytime who performed a chemical peel on a student, did I think 5 passes of a glycolic acid peel, which with that peel, you're only supposed to do 3. And this was a demonstration in front of other students. She did not neutralize the peel. That one required neutralization, and she ended up getting a chemical burn and had to come to a local spa to get things calmed down. This poor girl. I swear, a lot of the daytime teachers, when they substituted for us, would just go by whatever our teacher had written on the board and sit there and watch Netflix dramas on their phone. I did learn a lot in school. I felt like some of it was a little self-explanatory. If you're familiar with like color theory and face shapes and what type of makeup work on different face shapes, that was common sense to me. It felt kind of silly practicing makeup on paper and on mannequins, but I did learn a lot about the skin itself, the cell structure, the whole biology and chemistry aspects of the program were difficult for me to learn. That was a lot of new stuff for me, but really a lot of the focus of Pennsylvania's state board license test is on sanitation protocol. That's a huge thing. So you can look up study guides for your state board's esthetician license test online, and you should find study guides, or on QuizUp. There are some good study guides as well. QuizUp was a great resource for me memorizing anyway. It's like a flashcard kind of quiz program. 6 months kind of flew by. It was hard working and going to school, but it was worth it. I am now working at a medical spa and making commission and making more money than I have in any previous jobs with half the amount of hours. So it's pretty great. My school was very helpful with helping me set up my test. They submitted everything for me once I was paid up. So I would just advise you to look into the financials of the school that you're interested in. Probably go to a school that's accredited and see what other students have to say. But all in all, I had a good time. And if I could have done it in 3 months, I would have. But because they weren't accredited, I didn't really have that option. But if you don't have a lot of bills and you can go full time and not work, I would just bust it out. So with the basic aesthetics license in Pennsylvania, I could do facials, I can do waxing, full body waxing. They did not teach Brazilians in school though. Not sure why. I had to learn that on the job, but you don't need an extra certificate or additional training or schooling for that. You just need a professional to train you, or you can watch videos online. Mermaid Wax has some good tutorials. Microdermabrasion, chemical peels, makeup application, body scrubs, body wraps, ingredient knowledge, product protocol, that kind of thing. Retail sales, they do talk to you a little bit about the business aspects of it. We did not use the Milady books. So I believe we used the Pivot Point books. One thing that I didn't like was that our books were almost 10 years old. They were coming out with a new edition the following year, so we got the oldest books possible. They were like 9 or 10 years old, so that I thought was kind of BS, but that's another thing you should look into before you start with a school. Oh, and our kits. So in school, the product lines that we had to use were BioElements and Dermalogica. In our kits, we got Murad products. So that was good stuff. We got brushes, makeup applicators, spoolies, popsicle sticks. We got, cleansers, moisturizers, masks, toners, a good amount of stuff. And we got two, like a hard rolling case, a hard shell case, like for makeup, which can be useful if you do end up doing freelance makeup application. And we got a soft case rolling kind of piece of luggage. So that's nice. And I still do, use those things. So schooling was a little ratchet. It was a little iffy at times, and there were some disappointments with the administration, and it just felt a little slapped together, thrown together. But with my small class, we were focused on learning things by the book and getting as much practice as possible, despite COVID regulations kind of holding things back. But ultimately, there's so much that you learn after schooling. Like after school, I I got a certification in lash lifting and tinting. I got training on brow lamination, tinting. I learned to wax Brazilians. That's all the continued education I've had so far. I'd like to get my dermaplaning certificate done. That I want to say I have to travel to King of Prussia and take the course with Dermaplane Pro for a day, and that's I want to say $575. So I haven't made that jump yet. Another thing that takes continued education here in Pennsylvania is lash extensions. They don't teach you that in school. They teach lash strip applications at my school anyway. I see a lot of estheticians doing like teeth whitening, teeth gems. That's nothing that we learned in school, and I'm not sure about the training and regulations that come with that. A lot of lash extension courses are pretty inexpensive, a few $100s maybe, and you can do them online, or you can go to some estheticians teach them and offer certificates, but they're usually pretty pricey. Again, every state has different regulations and requirements, and every school has something different they can offer. Just do a lot of research, shop around, and compare. I took a good 6 months after I had decided I wanted to get my license to communicate with different schools and find out what their requirements were, their financials, and what they teach you ultimately. Smaller schools can be a little more messy, but at the end of the day, I feel like it's the smartest thing to spend the least amount of money to get your license, and after that you can spend more money to get your additional training and just learn as much as you can on your own. There's a lot that they don't teach you in school, and there's a lot that people learn just doing their own research. I've had clients who teach me things about ingredients who, they're falling down rabbit holes of skincare all day, and they're learning new trends, and it's hard to stay on top of all the new trends and procedures and ingredients that are buzzing out there. So it's a constant learning process with aesthetics. But I do recommend, I know a lot of girls want to go solo right out of school. As far as I've learned, it's most recommended to get a job at a spa, a medical spa, dermatology office, something like that, for at least 6 months to like 2-3 years, to get hands-on training and find out what you prefer to do the most, what is most fulfilling for you, and what you don't like to do, and just get some hands-on experience. Make your mistakes under someone else's name before you make a name for yourself, and just build your portfolio. Take as many pictures and videos as possible. Just get the client's permission before you do, because that's huge. A lot of spas and salons don't do their social media too well, especially in more rural areas. You have to kind of do that on your own, which can be hard when you're working or going to school full time. But yeah, I've been licensed for almost 2 years now. I graduated from aesthetic school over 2 years ago, and I'm doing it. A high percentage of people who go to school for aesthetics don't end up working in the field, let alone even taking their test, which surprised me. But, some people find out that they don't really enjoy it when they get into it. That's fine. It's not a very long commitment, so if you don't end up enjoying it, it's no big deal. Just study as much as you can before your test, especially on safety and sanitation protocols, and you'll do great. Another piece of advice, if you do want to get into a medical spa or something like that, find the place that you want to work at. Don't just search LinkedIn for who's hiring. Find your number one spa that you want to work at and a few other options, and contact them directly. Go in person and ask them some questions about the business, and maybe get to know their estheticians, maybe get a facial there, and just let them know you're passionate about aesthetics, and write up a resume with all the things that you learned in school and the things that you learn on your own time. Employers love to know that you do research and learning on your own time because you want to be better, not just that you've learned things in school and you've learned on the job. Like, they want to see your passion outside of the job as well. But everyone in aesthetics has a different niche. Just kind of play around with different things and you'll find out if something is your niche or not, and focus on that then. And if you need to take continued education, focus on that. It's not a big deal if you suck at makeup or you suck at facials, hate doing brows. Like, there's so many different things you could do with an aesthetics license. You can do freelance bridal makeup, you can do theater makeup, fashion and photography makeup, online skincare consultations, like remotely, and make commissions selling products online. You can do education on YouTube or offer courses for other estheticians. You could just do lashing. You can work at a spa and do facials. You can learn electrolysis, laser hair removal, microneedling, and dermaplaning, laser if you work under a medical spa, at least in Pennsylvania. There are some things like dermaplaning you, I believe, have to do under a doctor's permission in Pennsylvania, but I believe California, it's legal to do it just as a solo esthetician. So just make sure you are offering things that your state approves without, if you don't have a doctor working over you. This industry can be very discouraging. It can be very shallow and saturated and just messy and full of contradictions and confusion and drama. So just do your own thing and learn as much as you want to learn about what you're passionate about, and your clients will see that, and it won't matter what other people have to say because they trust in you. So be confident in what you know and what you practice and believe. People will love you. You should like working with people though if you get into aesthetics, because unless you could also work for a brand and do something like communications or marketing, or if you have another degree in something like journalism or whatever, you can work for a brand and do a more corporate aesthetics job. So you can combine it with a multitude of other degrees. Also, it doesn't matter what age you are when you go into aesthetics. I'm 30 years old, so I was 28 when I went into aesthetic school, and I felt so old. But my class, it was just me and two other girls. And the two other girls, the one was 19, so she was right out of high school. Most of the girls are. And my other classmate, she was in her 40s and she had a lot of medical background knowledge. So that was really helpful for her. And her insight was so great. And then having the 19-year-old with her Gen Z insight was also really insightful. So I think it was a good thing to have a mixture of ages in our class, more experience in different ways. And we all bring something different to the table. So don't feel bad if you're a certain age when you're getting into it. I did my senior career study in high school with an esthetician, and so I had always been kind of interested in it. My mom is a cosmetologist and she does hair, so she was always more in the hair, interest of things than skincare and makeup, but skincare and makeup was always my thing. So everyone gets into it for a different reason, and for a long time I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had all these administrative jobs, receptionist, front desk, that kind of stuff that just wasn't fulfilling, and I wanted to produce my own work and help people because I had all this knowledge. And I was offering kind of consultations for curating home care regimens for my friends and helping them figure out what products were best for them. And I was like, maybe I shouldn't be giving this advice without a professional license. So that's kind of what kicked me into finally going to school. I was doing all this research on my own time just for my own interest to learn more about skincare. And finally going to school just gave me permission to pursue it full time and turn a passion into a career. And it's not a perfect industry, but now I'm doing something for myself and for others. And there's so many different things I could do with it. If I decide one day I don't want to work at a medical spa and I want to do corporate aesthetics, or I want to just do lashes, or I want to work on a cruise ship, or even be a travel esthetician. Some girls will travel and work at different resorts throughout the country. Um, you can do anything. But I hope this was helpful. I'm sorry if it was a little all over the place. I tried to get my thoughts together in an organized way, but if you have any questions for me, leave them down in the comments. You can also follow me on Instagram, TikTok. It's Skin and Stars, skin period and period stars. I hope you're having a great day, and thank you so much for watching.